I don't make mistakes, I make prophecies that immediately turn out to be wrong.
Anything can happen in Formula One, and it usually does. 1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, and it's go!
And 𝗟𝗟𝗓𝗓 is the man who is closest to the man in front of him at the present moment.
And look now, at the end of the 5th lap, and we're on lap 6 now.
That's the Williams.
And Panis goes straight past the Williams of 𝗬𝗪𝗓𝗏.
A blow to the head with a helmet on doesn't hurt nearly as much as a blow to the head without one. So, Button is now up into 7th position.
I just happen to have my magic chart with me. It's a sort of shorthand thing of everything I need to know.
And how often do you actually look down at that? And how often?
Never. It's
I was going to say, yeah.
Turns into the chicane. Right, left, right. Now look at the conflagration at the back, which is about to happen. You can't see it. Both the Ferraris are in the top 6 at the present moment, and that is the only constructor that is. As they exit turn 5 on this 13-turn corner,
David pulls across in front of Coulthard.
all I can tell you at the moment is that David Coulthard, he keeps on accelerating and closing up to David Coulthard.
And Damon Hill wins in Belgium. Fantastic.
And then Irvine moving up from 10th maybe to 9th. I don't think he'll do better than that. Over the line and remains in 7th position.
Never ever give Michael Schumacher half a chance. He'll be like a very number drain pipe.
And it is now 29 minutes past the hour. 29 minutes past 2 in Monaco. 29 minutes past 1 in Great Britain, 29 minutes past something else in the many other parts of the world, India, Pakistan, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, that are listening to us at the present moment, not to mention Malaysia. Yeah, another terrific race by Jenson Button, and again he is at the Hungaro ring for the first time.
Meantime, 𝗧𝗪𝗓𝗏 has moved up into 5th position, and I predict he's going to pull away from the Williams. While you were away, Giancarlo 𝗧𝗪𝗓𝗏 got it all wrong and lost 2 places.
But 4 cars in the lead are both on a 2-stop strategy. Frentzen is in 4th position now. Michael Schumacher moves up into 4th place. Frentzen attack! That's Coulthard's McLaren in front of him. 2 World Championship leaders on the front row. There he is, Mika Häkkinen alongside him, Michael Schumacher. Mika Häkkinen is on the 2nd row of the grid. David Coulthard up there with Michael Schumacher.
And you can see by the body language of the Benetton mechanics that they are absolutely furious.
And I can remember no Grand Prix driver who's made a greater impression on me in his first season of Grand Prix racing than Jenson Button. Next year he goes to Benetton, a young man with a great Grand Prix future in front of him. And there's a man with a great Grand Prix future behind him, Michael Schumacher. And that's 𝗔𝗍𝗓, that's Marc 𝗔𝗍𝗓. He's done it again. This is his first time at Monaco, and he's done it in at the swimming pool.
They'll have to red flag that.
Mika Häkkinen is in provisional pole position at roughly half distance in terms of time. Lap 28 out of 56, which, unless I'm very much mistaken, is half a distance. And yes, I am very much mistaken. Twice 26 is not 58. We are not quite at the halfway point of the race. Well, we are now, actually. And Schumacher is continuing to harry, push. Just look at the gap before Frentzen comes through in 4th position. 𝗧𝗪𝗓𝗏 is 8th. Mika Salo, an excellent night for Sauber. Jenson Button in the top 10 is in 11th position. Both the McLaren drivers are faster than their equivalents in the McLaren team at the moment. Mika Häkkinen comes through to win in Spain and pulls... Hello? What's going on? Oh, off goes Mika Häkkinen! Off goes Mika Häkkinen out of the race! Mika Häkkinen, the race leader, loses the McLaren and slam bang into the wall, and the Finn is out. No points at Imola. No points for his McLaren. Loses traction into the wall, out of the race. Wow! There are some small runoff areas here, but you've got to be millimetrically perfect in your positioning of the car. Move over, there is a driver behind you who is going faster and has the right to pass. Michael Schumacher, as I expected, is extending his lead over Michael Schumacher. This race is going to be a commentator's nightmare.
These gravel traps don't seem to be stopping anybody at all here.
There isn't one there, Murray.
Just cost a few pence.
Look, we've got a strange guy walking down the side of the racetrack in a raincoat on the grass. And what on earth is he doing? Crossing the racetrack during the Grand Prix. And clearly either a bit too much beer there or he's hit his head on something, because he's not being sensible at all. Safety car, so this will close the pack up. James.
Yeah, safety car, and everybody's reacting quickly. We're going to have everybody making their pit stops. We're expecting who's going to come first from McLaren. This could be very painful for whichever is the second. Amazing turnaround.
Fantastic development this is. That lunatic, whoever he is changing the complexion of the race. There he is.
Hopefully we'll never see that again. Man on track.
But ding dong, are we going to see a race now?
And just look at the way Schumacher is pushing the car. You can see he's right on the ragged edge between flying off the circuit and staying off it.
Keep this order in your mind. Schumacher leading, Häkkinen second, Coulthard third, Rubens Barrichello right behind him. Fisichella is fifth, Herbert is seventh, and they're virtually together on the track itself. The best that Mika Häkkinen could do, I think, is to take third position. No, my goodness, he takes pole position. Incredible. 17.529. Now listen to this. Barrichello started it, then Button took over, then Schumacher, Ralph, then Häkkinen, then Coulthard, then Michael Schumacher, then Häkkinen, David Coulthard again, and is Michael Schumacher going to do it yet again? No. Nick Heidfeld, thankfully driving his last race for Prost. He's had a dreadful season. Barrichello leads Häkkinen, Coulthard is third, Salo in the Sauber is fourth, Jenson Button is in fifth position, and Pedro de la Rosa in the Arrows is eighth.
Ralph Schumacher doesn't really look to me as though he run out of gas. What do you think now?
I think that's Michael, actually.
Barrichello is driving, or about to drive, in his fourth race for Ferrari. He's following the great Ayrton Senna, who never drove for Ferrari, and Rubens Barrichello is mighty proud of it. So for the second time in the very recent future, Mika Häkkinen has got the depressing sight of a red Ferrari in front of him and holding him up. And the gap has increased now. Schumacher is 10 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher.
They've both gone through their sectors, fastest of all.
This is Ayrton Senna in reverse.
And that's the battle with Frentzen fifth, Wurz sixth, Fisichella sixth.
You can expect a stop of round about 8 seconds. When I say stop, I mean with the car stationary. Michael Schumacher alongside the Finn in the front row. They're both super starters, but Mika Häkkinen, I think, is a superer, if there is such a word, starter than Michael Schumacher. It looks like yet another bit of brilliant tactical thinking by Ross Brawn on the circuit, and Mika Häkkinen and Michael Schumacher at the wheel.
The temperature here in the commentary box is just as tense as it is all the way around the circuit.
Frentzen, Fisichella, Verstappen and Takagi are 10th. Excellent for Tora Takagi. 60-minute session, and we're into the 56th minute now, nearly 4 minutes gone. What's the strategy going to be? Well, the general feeling is that most of them will be doing 2 laps.
Well, the computer hasn't sorted itself out yet from those pit stops.
No, so I'm just going to wait until it does so. So easy to get it wrong.
And McLaren are fighting back from a very, very tough 1994, 1995, 1968, a better 1967 and a better 1968.
And there are a lot of people who are saying that the yellow, intimidating colour of that Ferrari attracts people's attention when they see it coming.
A career unmatched in both longevity and brilliance, Murray Walker's career saw him bring Formula One to the masses, providing his own unique take on some of the most exciting moments in motorsports history. From Fangio and Prost to Senna and Prost, Walker had the innate ability to turn the complex and sometimes confusing world of racing into the epitome of entertainment. Walker brought character, exhilaration and emotion to racing no matter the scenario or events playing out in front of him. An inspiration to so many, Murray was an exemplary gentleman and loved by all in the paddock and those watching on from home. From everyone at Simsport Racing, our thoughts and prayers are with Murray's family, friends and those close with him. And finally, thank you, Murray, for making us all fall in love with racing one 𝗪𝗔𝗡𝗏 at a time. The forever voice of Formula One, Murray Walker. And before we get going this evening with the Simsport Racing Ginetta Brit Sprint, let's have a look at the highlights from our previous race at Oulton Park.
Any moment now, we've got cameras up and down the field, as you can see, as we go green in the British Ginetta Sprint here with Simsport Racing. Richard's down the outside. He looks like 𝗖𝗢𝗞𝗘𝗏 is going to cover it off. He does just about, but Matt is looking to get around the outside. He's just about not managed to keep that run. As you see, cars go kicking up dust, but it looks like to him everyone's managed to make it through the first couple of corners relatively unscathed.
On the timing tower, just dropping off on the left-hand side, so there could have been some drama there that we weren't able to catch. But Regan Mitchell here in the 69 Bull Shifters car going side by side with Jordan Flores, I think, or Gilbert, sorry, in front as they come into Old Hall. Mitchell trying to go around the outside and does so convincingly.
The Simsport Solutions car now, like I said before, up to 16th place and challenging Callum Cook for a position up into 14th as well, as he's going in towards Druids at the moment. Looks like he's going to have to run down to the inside. Wonderful move. He got that almost done before the apex, and he looks like he's just going to hang Callum out to dry.
Exciting racing so far as we see 𝗪𝗪𝗔𝗏𝗏 trying to put a move on Peter's Weem into Old Hall and gets the job done, but they're going to be side by side down the hill into Cascades. 𝗪𝗪𝗏𝗏's going to have to be brave to hang it out, and
he's confident he'll make that move now, but we'll see whether he does. He's got a great run up the hill in towards Druids to go through Clay Hill and into Watertower down into Druids. He's going to try and make a move. He's going to stick behind him, it looks like. I wonder if he's going to try and just get a better angle. He's going down the inside into Druids. That's a little bit close. That 2-1 is not going to go there. That was a very close move. Nearly a bit of contact between the front two there, all over the shop. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you tennis referenced him. It is very much a case of just trying to exude those unforced errors from people. You see Darvo looking to make a move down the inside into Shell. Big send on to Daniel Andrews there. A little bit of contact. Bringing the British GT point very much into a little bit of door open from the two of them there, but he's managed to make the move stick.
Here we go, 𝗪𝗪𝗏𝗏 side by side with Kent. Andrews wants to slice the pie as well as they come into Old Hall. And 𝗪𝗪𝗏𝗏, if he can hold this inside line and carry enough speed, as we see Kent running slightly wide, they're going to go 3 wide. Andrews on the grass on the run down to Cascades. I think 𝗪𝗪𝗏𝗏's just about managed to keep it clean through the middle there, part the seas to some extent, as they go side by side into Island Bend. Martin Pilkington on the inside. Kent closes the door slightly and realises there's a car on his inside on the run into the Shell Oils corner, and Pilkington trying to use the camber around the outside. It's almost like an oval corner through there, and he has done so. Got a nice run out there into Britain's. He's going to have the inside, and hopefully he can just close the door on Kent and get the move done, and has done so. It's that game of chess you were talking about, David. It's one move one way and one move the other.
Yeah, absolutely. That was, if I was going to prefer that one to chess, it was very much a case of Miles just kind of getting his ball and just smacking one of the other pieces on Regan's side. He looks like he's just about made the move into Druids.
Bro's risen to the occasion. He's been the man on the mission this evening. Fantastic defensive driving for easily half an hour of that one to keep Richards behind. And as we see Bro flashing the lights and weaving from side to side, he's going to take victory at the opening round.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this second round here in Simsport Racing for the second round of the Ginetta Brit Sprint. My name is David Wressell, and before we get any further into things, a massive thank you to my partner in crime, Tim, who's alongside me this evening, and a big thank you to him for the tribute there to the legend that was Murray Walker, of course, and fantastic work from everyone in the Simsport Racing team for putting together that lovely opening amalgamation and selection of clips from an amazing career and a fantastic life. And like I say, big thoughts go out to Murray and the entire family and the entire Walker family at this very dark time. But we'll turn our attention to the Ginettas. We're here in Kent this evening at the Brands Hatch GP circuit. We'll come to the standings in a second, and we'll see who obviously took the win a couple of weeks out at Oulton Park. Of course, 𝗦𝗓𝗏 took that, subject to quite a staunch defensive display from himself ahead of 𝗪𝗏𝗔𝗏𝗏𝗡. Unfortunately, of course, got some issues with tyre wear towards the end of that race. Tim, good evening to you, mate. Hope you're well. But before I come to you, I just want to invite in our former GT4 champion, Stephen Haley, into the comms box to join us for this evening. Steve, how are you, sir? You doing well?
Evening, chaps. Yep, doing very well. Thank you very much. Yourselves?
Yes, very well, thank you. And Tim, how about yourself? How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you, David. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this race this evening at Brands Hatch. If the opening round at Oulton Park was anything to go by, Superpole will be providing some drama. Obviously, if you're new to the series, the Superpole is a new addition to our racing portfolio here at Simsport Solutions, Simsport Racing, sorry, where we have one lap of qualifying. The drivers have one lap in a 10-minute period to set their best time. And we saw some mistakes and some drama that unfolded last time from that. And really a 0.006 of a second margin between 𝗦𝗓𝗏𝗏 and 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏. So not only did it turn for some errors from some people, it really brought the field very closely together. But looking forward to getting going this evening.
Absolutely. And before we go into the action tonight, while the guys finish off their practice session before Superpole begins, to draw your attention to the standings you can currently see, of course, like I said before, 𝗦𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏 managing to get top spot last time out at Oulton Park, so he is top of the standings. At this moment, Glenn Guest close in behind him, and Jordan Burrows rounding out the top three. Of course, our podium sitters from just a couple of weeks ago: Miles Dixon, Regan Mitchell, Robbie Stapleford, 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, Joris Peters, Veeam, David Hedges and Charlie Kent, and Aaron Martin Pilkington rounding out the top 10. Adam 𝗖𝗢𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, Kieran Vidago, Stijn Passpont, Matt Webb, and Marcus Hagel. Running out the point scorers of Harry Spires, not yet to get any points on the board, of course, wasn't actually with us for Oulton Park a couple of weeks ago. And then if we refer to the AM standings, James Gilbert, of course, winning that round last time out. Daniel Andrews, second there. Richard Pixley in third. Denise Pope, Luke Hanlon Fitzgerald, Declan Bowler, Johan Pettersson, Kevin Smith, Mattis Nija and Callum Cook, joint 9th place. Evan Daffas, Cameron Fife, Chris Williams, Chris Bowman, and Niall Schleter. Of course, neither of those guys getting out a couple of weeks ago at Oulton Park. They are currently without points. But Steve, we saw the action a couple of weeks ago at Oulton Park. It was entertaining, to say the least. Very, very different track, of course, this being Brands Hatch this evening. How do you foresee the action going? Where are you thinking that the majority of the overtaking moves are going to be done this evening?
I think perhaps first corner, Druids, and possibly somebody might chuck it up the inside up Hawthorns. I think there's plenty of places you can overtake here if you get a good exit out one of the previous corners. So I think it'll be exciting, and for sure keep your eyes open, guys.
Absolutely, yeah, it should be a good one this evening. Big welcome into everyone watching on the stream on the YouTube channel as well, or whatever platform you're tuning into this evening. Remember, if you are watching on the YouTube channel, then make sure if you haven't done already, you like and you subscribe and hit that little bell notification so that you know when every single stream is coming out as well, because there's plenty of action throughout the weeks under the Simsport Racing banner. And Tim, like you mentioned it briefly a moment ago, of course, Superpole will be starting in a couple of minutes' time. Brands Hatch was a difficult one for track limits. Oulton Park was a difficult one for track limits, but Brands Hatch isn't exactly a cakewalk either. It's going to be interesting to see how everyone gets on this evening.
Definitely. And again, Brands Hatch is one of these circuits where the margins for error are very, very small. And you arrive in these corners thinking, okay, they're particularly more open than the previous corner. You want to try and carry speed in, particularly with the Ginettas. You want to get the car rotated on the apex, but find yourself making a small mistake and then it's grass and then it's wall. And that's, if that's in the race or like you mentioned in Superpole, lap done, back of the grid. Show up and see what you can make of the bad situation. It's thrilling, and we saw though that there was plenty of overtaking last time. Martin Pilkington had to return to the pit lane on the warm-up lap, but he was able to get from around about 28th on the grid when the race finally got underway, all the way up to 8th. So plenty of opportunity to climb back through the order if you do make that mistake in Superpole. But obviously, you want to get the job done on that sole lap you have.
Absolutely, Tim, and yeah, like you say, with it being a single car series, that's the words I'm looking for in the Ginetta. Of course, it does mean that setups and racecraft, of course, is the primary thing to get you around this place in one piece and try and get to the top of the standings towards the end of it. Of course, Stephen, you're well rehearsed in winning championships. Is there any advice you would want to output to these guys this evening ahead of this second race of the season?
Keep it fast, keep it clean, and race hard. That's probably the only rules you can kind of go by as a race driver.
Absolutely lovely stuff. That. So yeah, like I say, we'll be getting Superpole underway in just a minute. For those of you wondering, for those of you who are wondering how that's going to work in terms of the way the simulation is going to work. So the guys will go out, they'll obviously have their out lap. They'll do their flying lap. And at that point, you'll probably start to see people jumping off to the side of the track and then just exiting back to the pit lane automatically. It's the easiest way of managing without having to give away any penalties. If anyone manages to go and do more than one flying lap, they will be demoted to the back of the grid. So as you mentioned, Tim, qualifying is going to be very important. It's going to be interesting to see who's going to leave it all out there on the track, as they say, and who's going to be maybe a little bit more sensible and try and hold back and get a valid lap in and see where they end up.
Yeah, and it's all about track space. You know, if everyone goes out when the green flag waves, then you got to wait and find a little space. Whereas we saw last time at Oulton Park, drivers like 𝗦𝗕𝗏, who eventually grabbed pole. We also saw 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 leave it very late. They decided to wait and hold on, let the track evolve, let the rubber get laid down. And really, other drivers set the benchmark for them to go out and beat. Obviously, that brings with it this increased pressure of, you've got to get the job done now. You know the target you're aiming at, but those were some of the fastest times right towards the end of the session. And having had that first run through of this new format, I wonder if the other drivers might have changed their approach. There's definitely a few that went early and found themselves having to deal with a car on a warm-up lap or made a mistake and because of traffic ahead and behind. So it is a tactical game. This 10 minutes, one lap, it sounds like there's plenty of time to get your flying lap in, but with a sizable grid, we're looking at the best part of 30 cars out there this evening. 28, I think, is the exact number. That's not a lot of space around what is a 3.9 kilometre circuit here at Brands Hatch.
No, absolutely. And a 45-minute race to follow. So flag to flag, no pit stops or anything required. So it is literally, get across the line first. After that 45 minutes has elapsed, we should be getting into qualifying any minute now. Of course, we heard that some of the guys out there were planning some, dare we say, strategies a couple of weeks ago. And as you mentioned, Tim, and we mentioned obviously that the track is going to continue potentially to evolve as we work through it. Steve, if you had the chance to get out on track this evening, any ideas as to what you would do? Would you try and get out nice and early and get a lap on the board, or would you be one of those who probably wait sort of towards the end before putting that lap in?
I think you've just got to get out there and get a banker lap in. I think obviously the guys who are at the front of the queue in the pit lane are going to find it a lot easier, I think. But it all depends whether whether some of the guys towards the back or the middle of the train, as it were, decide to come out and do their lap as the faster guys are starting their other lap. So I mean, it's going to be quite difficult, I think, but you've just got to get out there and get it done.
Absolutely. So the drivers are in the briefing, so we're going to cut away to a couple of adverts, and then we'll be back in a second, and we'll be ready to go for this evening's Ginetta Brit Sprint Round 2 here at Brands Hatch GP. Don't go anywhere. Folks, welcome back. So qualifying will be underway in just a couple of minutes. Of course, 10 minutes in the Superpole, so we will be seeing everyone going out. We're seeing a couple of predictions coming in for pole position. Good to see 𝗪𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 in the chat. 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗦𝗔𝗥, 𝗪𝗏𝗫𝗏𝗏𝗏, Cameron 5, Donut TV. I think that's Charlie Kent who goes via that name. We've got 𝗪𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏 as well. So it's great to see the guys tuning into the chat. And of course, feel free to stop by, like I say, hit the subscribe button, like the stream, and all of that fun stuff as well. But as you mentioned, Tim, of course, it's a longer track than we had last week at Oulton Park. It certainly feels longer than Oulton Park was. Of course, Oulton Park is one of those where you're almost on the ragged edge the entire way round. But track, getting the spare piece of track at some point through this 10 minutes is not going to be easy because, of course, as you and I well know, once they go out on track, it is that you're out now. You've got to put your lap in. So it's going to be interesting to see how they balance getting some track position, but also keeping the tyres and the brakes warm as they go onto that flying lap as well, isn't it?
Yeah, you're completely right there. I was just going to say, you get out on track, you've got one lap to bring the car into that operating window. You have to be on it. You know, you can't spend your time trundling down the hill into Graham Hill Bend and down the long back straight through Pilgrim's Drop towards Hawthorns trying to find space on the track, because not only could you be impeding someone on a hot lap, but you're not putting that energy into the car to bring it into that performance window that you need it at for when you cross the start finish line across the Brabham Straight and begin your hot lap. So it really, we mentioned the word jeopardy a lot of a lot of the race last time. You're playing with fire to some extent with this format, but I think Stephen alluded to it, that you've got to get a lap in. A lap of some sort is better than no lap at all. So maybe erring on the side of caution, just getting yourself up the order in the grid with a solid time. Let others make mistakes around you, pushing hard. Maybe just get a good time in. Nothing that's going to have us screaming up here in the comms box, but something that sees you drop into that top 10, 15 area and really just let the action unfold around you and have a clean race. And we saw that from a number of drivers, just keeping the nose clean, getting the job done. Regan Mitchell, one of them, had a very solid race. But the gaps are small, the margins are tight. And I think getting that lap time in to at least help you on your way this evening is of priority.
Absolutely, Tim. Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I'm sure we'll see over the next 10 minutes or so plenty of different plans of action and things like that. And I think we'll be crossing over to the track now. As you can see, the guys are going out. 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, one of the early runners, getting out onto the track. Got one of the other guys next to him as well. So we'll start to see lap times coming. But you can already see, Stephen, as you see, not too many people so far. I know we're only a minute into the session, but with 9 minutes left to go, still quite a few people looking to be staying in the pits now. It's going to be interesting to see. Like I say, you mentioned you'd probably prefer to put a statement lap in, get a time on the board, and then just kind of see how it plays out. But it seems like a lot of these people are maybe looking to go the opposite and just try to see what a competitive lap time is and maybe use that as a benchmark, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like we've only got 7 cars on the track at the moment, so I mean they're playing the game that I probably would. You get out there, like I say earlier, get a lap in at least, then you've got something on the board. Because if you get held up later on, then pretty much it's kind of a done deal. You're either kind of the lower end of the grid, I guess. But then again, I suppose if they're all going to trip over each other, then it's going to be a kind of a thing where they're going to be. Everybody's going to be kind of having a problem, so it's just going to be the kind of luck of the draw, and maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think luck is going to definitely play a factor in this. And Tim, you can see there, 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 doing a fantastic job of lighting up those rear tyres. It's one of those things that you kind of tread a bit of a thin line, don't you? It's either a case of, I'm going to get really nice warm tyres, or if it was someone like me, perhaps you probably end up in the wall. But he's managed to do a good job of that as he comes on to what it looks to be the first line lap of anyone in the session.
Yeah, he's really aggressive in trying to generate some heat in the tyres, and hopefully he's got enough as he throws the Ginetta into Paddock Hill Bend. Looked fairly in control on the climb up the hill towards Druids, the heavy braking point, one of the hardest stops on the track to throw the anchor out and have gravity help you as you climb up the 𝗪𝗚𝗏𝗡, and then down towards Graham Hill Bend, where we saw him drifting really through there. But he's in control this time on his hot lap, of course. He's looking in fine fettle at the moment on the way up to 𝗪𝗔𝗟𝗘𝗧, a corner that has so much understeer inducing camber that seems to spit you out over to the right hand side there. But 𝗏𝗡𝗧 looking in good control. He's run this car for a number of seasons in the Simsport Racing GT4 Championship, so I expect him to be on top of it. He had a difficult time out last time at Oulton Park, really 11th in qualifying and 25th in the race. It didn't really show what I think Steiner's capable of, but as he comes through Dingle Dell and up towards the Sheen curve, a blind right-hander, see he's leaving a little bit of track width on both the apex and on the exit, so I think he's keen to maybe just get a time in. Again, look, sometimes drivers will be all over that curb on the right hand side on the exit of Stirling's, but he wasn't that time. So I think he's maybe applying this approach of just get a lap in, get up the order and set a time as he stays over to the right hand side, coming up to the finish line to set a first time of 1:33.3. So that's our first flyer, and let's see how the rest of these come in.
Yeah, absolutely. See Charlie Kent coming around the final corner at the moment. We'll see what he manages to do, unless that's going to be a starting time. We're starting to see sometimes get onto the board. See Chris Williams coming in second. Now Schlitter, of course, first time out, and the Ginettas this time round sitting in third at the moment. He's gone back into the pits. Fortunately, Charlie Kent there going fastest by just over a tenth of a second with a 1:33.1. Now, I had the chance to have a quick look at the timings, and if you do want to see the timings yourself, if you're watching the stream, then you need to head over to pitwall.live and search for the Simsport Solutions server, and you can see all the details that we've got on here, and you can do some really nice comparisons between them as well. But Stephen, we saw I personally saw in the practice, I think they were looking sort of 1:32, low 1:32s, maybe even a high 1:31. Are you expecting that we might get anywhere near that? You see 𝗪𝗏𝗡𝗘𝗡𝗏 going to 1:32.7. What would your kind of root gut feeling be in terms of an optimal time around here, considering the fact that they have to get it right that first time?
The thing is, this is the thing. It's a one lap deal. So it's like if you're doing normal qualifying, you probably put 2 or 3 laps in to get an ideal lap. As regards to the times, I think your 32s are probably going to be where it's at. Looking at the track, it's a fast track at the moment, so it's not nowhere near optimum. So I think Aaron, he's well versed in this car. I assume that his kind of lap time will be a benchmark, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's 0.3 of a second ahead at the moment. You see Matt Richards in the chat. Unfortunately, he's not able to join us this evening. I'm sure he would have been hoping to try and get a better result than he did last time out, Tim. And we can see Denise Pope at the moment. Of course, she's one of the many AM drivers in this field. Certainly one to look out for. She's had in the Simsport Racing community, she's had some unfortunate comings together towards the start of races. And this is one of those, of course, with Paddock Hill Bend, the way this lap starts, it is one of those that can contribute to quite an action-packed first couple of corners. It's going to be interesting to see whether everyone can keep away from each other and have a clean start to this race, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I'd put a 5 on there being a 4 wide, maybe 5 wide moment at some point on that opening lap. These cars are all the same. Everyone's dealing with the same machine underneath them, and really the finer points are down to the driver to develop in setup or in their own driving styles. And it really is fantastic to see the field levelled so. But that lap from 𝗪𝗏𝗡𝗘𝗏, which is still our provisional pole time, he's got a gap of 0.4 now to Charlie Kent, according to my live timing screen. So no one's got close yet, but there are a few names out there that maybe could claw back some time and risk knocking him off, predominantly being Aidan Brough in the 93 𝗪𝗏𝗡𝗘 Motorsports car. He's headed out on track at the moment, so it'd be interesting to see how his lap time, I should say, matches up against 𝗪𝗏𝗡𝗘𝗏. You can see him on the right hand side of your screen warming up the tyres. But James Gilbert here coming down towards the final corner. Really a strong showing from him actually last time out. He is one of these AM drivers, but he finished 6th on the order as he kicks up the dust on the exit of Clark there. Manages to get the car back over to the right hand side on the run to the light. So he goes 10th 1.7 seconds off 𝗪𝗏𝗡𝗡𝗏. But he finished 6th last time out, which was a win in class. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him moving forward despite the Pro or Am division cars around him.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, there's the jeopardy involved with this Superpole qualifying session that we do have. But at the same time, if you can get a good start off the line, Steve, it's going to be you're going to have a good chance of getting up the grid. And of course, 45-minute race. Not necessarily everyone's going to be jostling for position right at the start. Although it is 45 minutes, it's classed as a sprint, but it's not exactly the shortest time in the world. So I'm sure we're going to see plenty of position change, and potentially I would expect that we might see some people up and down the grid who move both ways, both up the grid from qualifying and then potentially down the grid if they get caught up in some first lap skirmishing, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously your first lap is always going to be the kind of worst off the line into turn one. I think they're going to be quite bunched up. So I think there's going to be some movers and shakers. I think for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can see 𝗦𝗓𝗏𝗏 Brit just coming down Paddock Hill for his first lap. He's in the corner. Sorry, his first and only lap, of course. He's in the bottom corner of your screen. We're watching 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, one of the rookies in the series, but he's in the pro class this time out as he's coming around the back end of the track, up at the top of the hill, coming down towards through 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 up towards 𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏. Not the easiest corner to get right, Tim, this 𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏, is it? Because you kind of want to take quite a bit of curve, but if you take too much, of course, you're going to potentially be ruining your lap and getting that lap invalidated via track limits.
Oh, it's so blind through there. It's such a difficult corner. You can't see the apex as you're climbing up towards it. You just have to chuck the car in and hope. And 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 did a fantastic job of taking enough curve on the inside, but not too much to anger the stewards, like you say. So let's see where he slots on our standings. A fantastic time. He jumps up to 4th, a couple of tenths off 𝗪𝗏𝗡𝗡𝗏𝗏, actually, as it looks like Glenn Guest has set a very good lap time, 1:32.80, to go within a tenth of a second of that pole time. So let's see where 𝗦𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏 Brit fits in. Our race winner last time out, he was fairly comfortable. He was able to just keep Matt Richards at bay until Richards had that tyre issue in the second half of the race. But as he rounds the final corner through Clearways and Clark, doesn't get out too wide, again leaves a nice margin to the edge of the track to be able to keep the lap as clean as possible. And as Bro crosses the line, he goes up to 6th. So still, again, a bit of time to pole position, 3 tenths. It's not the closest of margins. Like I say, last time, 6,000ths of a second. So maybe drivers are just learning to get that time in, like we've mentioned, and not risk it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's good to see. I'm seeing apart from 4 people who've come out on track, Matthias 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 being the final man on track at the moment. He'll be on his hot lap, and we'll wait to see what time he crosses the line in about 45 seconds time. And 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, of course, still on pole. He's only on pole by a very short margin, like you mentioned, Tim. Glenn Guest currently 0.08 of a second behind him. Regan Mitchell currently sitting in 3rd place, and then Jordan Burrows and Robbie Stapleford currently the top 5, separated by only a quarter of a second at the moment. As you see Matthias 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 going through the last couple of corners into Stirling's at the moment. He's going to go on to Clearways and then down towards Clark Curve to finish off this lap. He's going to be hard pushed to get that time in. Of course, you can see the wait time is wait for the server to step over into the race itself. But he comes through Clearways, looks to keep it clean. Looks fairly reserved through there, a little bit of understeer maybe, but manages to keep it on the black stuff. And he goes towards the inside, as you've seen all of the drivers have, as he can put the time on the board, puts himself up into 17th place, I saw. So first couple of laps, there's going to be a lot of jostling for position. We said that Brands Hatch is one of those circuits where you can go side by side for quite a significant portion of the lap. And it's going to be really interesting, Steve, to see how the first couple of laps go, and probably as well see how long it's going to take for these guys to get into the groove. We know how these single spec series can be. You can have fighting going on throughout the entire thing, even from the green light, can't we?
Yep, for certain. Like I say, I think off the line, I think it's going to be whoever gets the drop on the green light. The first lap's always going to be the tightest. I think people are going to chance the luck, I should imagine. But I mean, as we always say in the briefing, before we start a race, obviously the race isn't won in the first corner. So with a bit of luck, they'll all decide on the air of caution a little bit on that, and try and make the moves elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly going to be an interesting and eventful and 45 minutes coming up. And before we get into that, if you do want to get involved in the action on track or alongside myself, Tim and Stephen in the commentary box this evening, then make sure you head over to www.simsport-racing.com, where you can find all the necessary links to the Twitter page, the Facebook page, the Discord server, and all of that stuff so you can get involved. But as you can see, we have now got all the cars on track. And Tim, I don't know if you've spotted it, but on the forecast at the top of the screen, rain inbound.
Yeah, that's really going to throw a spanner into the works when the race gets into the final third. So let's see if that rain does arrive at Brands Hatch. It's very overcast at the moment, but conditions similar to what we had at Oulton Park. Track temperature of 24 degrees Celsius, ambient temperature 18. So similar conditions and conditions these drivers will have raced in before, but interested to see the battles the championship battles that are already beginning to play out. 𝗦𝗕𝗏 in 6th. Does he want to fight his way up the order to make sure he gets the better of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who finished second last time out Oulton Park, and likewise our AM race winner in race 1, James Gilbert, 5th, 6th, 7th in class at the moment. Look, he's right down the order in 18th. So he's got an interesting challenge ahead. Does he throw everything at it and make passes to get up to 𝗪𝗔𝗡𝗔𝗏𝗏𝗧, who's done a great job of qualifying 9th position? That's 5 places better than he managed at Oulton Park. And like we say, that the difference in tracks between the race 2 weeks ago at Oulton Park and here at Brands Hatch, I think there's that long back stretch between 𝗬𝗔𝗟𝗘𝗏 and Hawthorns really enables these cars to get up to top speed and use that slipstream. So whereas on the run through Island Bend and into Shell Oils, really there's not a long enough flat out period really to do some damage on the car in front. I think there is that time here at Brands Hatch. So plenty of moves and plenty of opportunities here, I think, in comparison to the race 2 weeks ago.
Absolutely, Tim. Yeah, going to be a very interesting one, that's for sure. Now, with 2.5 minutes left, Steve, obviously, we've seen the fact that there is potentially rain inbound. We're expecting it will be around 15 minutes to go, so it's definitely going to make for an eventful last 15 minutes or so. In terms of the setup, of course, these guys have all been running probably a very bespoke dry setup for qualifying. What sort of changes, in terms of changes, how much do you think they'll be looking to change, knowing that rain is on the way? Do you think they'll probably try and stick with what they have, or do you reckon they'll be maybe making a couple of small changes just to balance for that? How do you think they'd be, or what do you think? What would be going through your mind if you were in that position at the moment, knowing there is some potential adverse weather conditions on the horizon?
I think with these cars, I would personally, I would probably have gone with my normal race setup, and I've maybe gone down with the camber a touch. But 15 minutes, it's virtually nothing. I mean, you can say there's going to be a minute or two, maybe 5 minutes worth of light drizzle for the track to go from dry to damp, etc. So it might not actually be 15 minutes worth of rain. You could only get like 10 minutes worth of heavy rain, in which case you'll have pitted for wet tyres. But I think the main problem they're going to be they're going to be battling is tyre pressure loss. If they do get any kind of pressure loss during the race before the rain comes, and obviously when the rain comes, the temperature drops quite significantly, that could make for quite an interesting dynamic to see where they want to pit, see when the cut-off is going from dry to wet, dry to damp and damp to wet. So it'll be interesting to see what the guys do and when they decide to pit, and hopefully they've got a wet setup already on the car, ready to go for when they do the pit.
Yeah, hopefully they've been well prepared and they've got all of this set up, but never too easy to tell, is it? But with just under 30 seconds left, as we wait for the formation lap to begin, of course, Aaron Martin Pilkington on pole at the moment. Glenn Guest is alongside him on the first row. We've then got Regan Mitchell and Jordan Burrows on row number 2. Robbie Stapleford and last timeouts winner 𝗦𝗕𝗏𝗏 in 5th and 6th respectively. Charlie Kent and Stijn Paspoort lining up on the 4th row, and 7th and 8th, 𝗪𝗔𝗡𝗏𝗏𝗧 and Chris Williams, the first two AM drivers, currently set up in 9th and 10th. And as we continue down the field, we've got Miles Dixon, Daniel Andrews, 𝗪𝗞𝗏𝗏, DAFAS, Peter Zveem, 𝗪𝗔𝗟𝗘𝗏𝗏𝗧, Gilbert, Hanlon, Fitzgerald and Jackson in the top 20. And then we've got I would say we've got around about 27 cars, I think, going out on track this evening, Tim. It's going to be interesting as we see 𝗟𝗏𝗡𝗡𝗡𝗏 leading us off for this formation lap, and going to be a lot of time for them to obviously get the cars up to temperature and things, but it's all well and good having them up to temperature. You want to get that run into the first corner, and with the first corner being as fast and sweeping as it is here at Brands Hatch in the former Paddock Hill Bend, certainly going to be one ripe for some action, I think, this evening.
Oh, definitely. And as we cut to this fantastic static shot brought to you by our broadcast director, Steve Proudly, you can see how steep it is at Paddock Hill. I've had the pleasure of living pretty close to Brands Hatch, and I've certainly trekked up the gradient there a few times, and it is noticeable. And that just brings the Ginetta's characteristics to the foreground, really. It's such a light, nimble GT4 compared to the other cars on ACC, and you really have to float this car in and try and get it turned. It's so nimble. And in a corner like Paddock Hill, if you get some understeer, you're just going to find yourself washing out towards the gravel trap and losing tons of time on the way up to Druid. So I think it's going to be about getting a clean start, getting off the line from the rolling start, of course, when the green flag waves, getting away cleanly, but then managing that entry into turn one. Do you go aggressive? Do you maybe just try and be conservative, find your little space, a little comfort zone with a bit of margin to the other cars around you to negate any chance of someone making a mistake and taking you out, and then up the hill towards Druids? It's a gamble, really. There, really just spin the wheel and hope your number comes up, because this number of cars funneling down into order through there, which it's a hairpin at the best of times, is going to be very tricky indeed. But make it through that first lap nice and cleanly, and really just battle it through to this final 15 minutes where we can see the rain is due.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's going to be interesting to see what sort of racecraft we see in this first 30 minutes, whether people will try and make a move for it quite early doors. You see the guys lining up side by side, Glenn Guest alongside 𝗟𝗏𝗡𝗡𝗡𝗏 on the front row. Aaron just sort of dropping a bit forward, maybe going to warm up the brakes in a second or so as he drops back into position as we go round Clark Curve onto the Brabham Straight for the first time. Wait for the lights to go green in a moment or so. You see 𝗟𝗏𝗡𝗡𝗡𝗡 quite a way ahead at the moment. He's practically at a standstill, waiting for the rest of the field to bunch up behind him. So that's not going to do him too much in terms of favours. Maybe, well, I'm sure he's hoping the car is a little bit warmer than it would have been previously, but we're just getting them over the Brabham Straight now, over the top of the crest and down, or over towards Paddock Hill Bend, waiting for the lights to go green any second for this 45-minute flag-to-flag race here at Brands Hatch in the Ginetta Brit Sprint. And there we go, the lights are green, and you can see 𝗟𝗏𝗡𝗡𝗡𝗡 with the inside line going into Paddock Hill Bend, but Glenn Guest sticks it around the outside, just about sits in behind him. As you can see, a lovely shot. As you see them all funneling down the hill through Paddock Hill Bend. Looks like everyone's making it through cleanly at the moment. No one seeing a unforeseen trip into the gravel as we go into Druids for the first time. Robbie Stapleford, it looks like, has dropped back a move or so. Aidan Bro manages to get past him, but 𝗟𝗏𝗡𝗡𝗡𝗡, Steve, is just disappeared off at the front. He's making a habit of this, from what I've seen in the Simsport Racing community over the last couple of weeks. He's not doing too badly, is he?
I think Aaron's got his mojo back. I know he was having a bit of a rough time lately with some of the races and some of the results, etc. But especially this last week, he's done a fantastic job with a couple of wins. So yeah, really good to see him out there.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's already got a gap of 0.7 of a second as they go into the GP loop for the first time. Of course, running the GP layout here at Brands Hatch in ACC, not the Indy layout. Otherwise, the races would be plenty more laps than I think we'd probably need. But Tim, you can see action all the way in throughout the field. You see Denise Pope getting overtaken around the outside by Luke Hanlon Fitzgerald, but going up into Sheen, there's two cars is not going to fit through here. It's going to be interesting to see whether Luke hangs it around the outside. He does, but goes onto the grass. You can see there, although it looks like this track can be quite wide, it's not necessarily every single corner you can go through, and he was catching Callum Cook there, and that's all going to go to tears or contact all over the place. Not the moment Luke wanted to have there. It looked to me as if he was caught on a back foot and just went to stick it down the inside just for the sake of it. Almost a bit of an aggressive move, but Aidan Bro there going through Paddock Hill Bend, caught unfortunately by Robbie Stapleford sliding through there. Regan Mitchell doesn't need an invitation to go through there. 𝗟𝗏𝗡𝗡𝗡, I think that is in the in the treble 4 car, goes up into 4th place. That'll be now, and he's the big winner out of that. But action all the way up and down the field so far, Tim.
Wow, I don't know how 𝗖𝗔𝗟𝗏𝗏 managed to hold on to that. That was touring car-esque through Paddock Hill Bend. And yeah, Sten picking up maybe 2, 3, 4 positions out of that. So fantastic driving from him to be aware of the drama playing out in front of him, and especially through Paddock Hill where it's blind on the way through the apex and down the hill. He made an excellent choice to go to the inside. You see Chris Williams here battling out with Andrews, I think, as alongside as they come up towards Hawthorns side by side through there. Very nicely done round the outside from the Pole Simsport Ginetta there. So those guys battling at the bottom end of the top 10. But Glenn Guest and Aaron Martin Pilkington are really starting to make their escape at the top of the field now. They've got 1.5 seconds or just slightly less than that actually to Jordan Burroughs in third. You see Daniel Andrews going side by side with Robbie Stapleford. They make some contact through 𝗪𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓, and that's just allowing Bro, who made that mistake now in 6th place, to just relax a little bit. He's got no pressure behind. It's all about cracking on and moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And 3 laps into this one, Aaron Martin Pilkington still out front, running the fastest lap on the last time round, a 1:32.7. So still already, I think, if not too far off, if not better than what his pole lap was in qualifying before as well. Of course, we do have the optimum track now, but just shows you how much, Steve, they were potentially holding back, obviously, just to make sure they got that lap on board. We see a little bit of contact again. Chris Bowman go through Paddock Hill Bend. I think that's Owen who's caught him there going through again. Lovely save from these guys. I can't imagine it's going to be the easiest thing. Chris goes down the inside up into 𝗔𝗟𝗓𝗏𝗏 past, I think that's Jackson there, going into 𝗔𝗟𝗓𝗏𝗏 and then gets shoved out for it. There's certainly no quarter given so far in this first couple of laps, is there? It's certainly some, dare I say, bordering on aggressive moves so far.
I think sometimes you've got to have a bit of aggression, but I think it's going to be measured aggression. We've certainly seen some wayward Ginettas out there, and they're doing well to keep hold of them. 𝗖𝗔𝗟𝗏𝗏𝗏 on specific through Paddock Hill Bend, holding onto it, which was fantastic to see. As long as they can keep hold of it and stay going in the right direction, it's fantastic for us to watch.
Absolutely, it certainly makes it great for us to talk over, and great for everyone in the chat to watch and talk about as well. As you see Evan Daffas trying to get round down the inside of Callum Cook there as they went through the GP loop going in towards Stirling's now, and just sitting in 19th place at the moment. Not a bad start from him. You see teammate Dennis Pope just went a little bit wide going through Stirling's there, so that's given Callum Cook the chance to get alongside as they go up towards Clark Curve. Probably not necessarily one of the overtaking spots you'd expect, but if you can get a good run onto the Brabham Straight, you'd certainly be hard pushed to see him making a move down in towards Paddock Hill Bend. He certainly looks close enough. It just depends on whether he's going to stick that Ginetta to the inside. He elects to hold off for now, but Joris 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, Tim, just in the background of this. You see one of the Pole Simsport machines there. I can't quite catch who that was, but one of those guys is off at the moment. Not sure what happened there. I wonder if we'll be able to get a replay. We'll at least be able to confirm who it's going to be, who dropped back there. It's not Miles Dixon, of course. We can see him at the moment. It's not Glenn Guest either. So it's going to be one of the other guys, but action all the way up and down the field, and stuff that even our resident cameraman and production manager Steve Proudley is unable to keep abreast of at the moment. It's all happening all over the place.
Yeah, definitely. And at the front of the order you were alluding to there, that they're going at quali pace. Martin Pilkington on that previous lap, 4/10, best part of 4/10 faster than his pole time. So even with the car laden with 45 minutes worth of fuel, he's able to go quicker than his best and only time in qualifying. So that shows you the pace that these guys have, and also how hard they're pushing once the green flag drops. But Miles Dixon here on the back of Williams for 10th is going to be tough to make that move, because Williams is pretty solid in this car, and on the back of the train he's going to be looking for a move on the car in front as well, being Marcus Hagel, who's doing a very nice job to be up inside the top 10. Here we have Lee Ward in 23rd at the moment, looking at the back of Bowman in front. So yeah, battles all the way through the field, David. You're spot on there, and with 38.5 minutes still to go, plenty of time to see the order changed, and especially if and when that rain comes. So Chris Williams here in 10th place at the moment. He's looking to challenge Hagel in front, and Miles Dixon looking for a way past behind. James Gilbert in 12th, 2.5 seconds off the back of this train at the moment. And once you find yourself in a train like this, Stephen, it's more difficult at times, isn't it? Or do you sometimes enjoy having a reference point in front, and particularly in a single make series? Surely it's going to be a right pain to have cars in front and behind.
I think having cars in front is okay. Personally, I don't mind it because you can measure yourself and the guys in front. Having to try to attack somebody or just sit there and wait for the opportunity to make a nice pass, and then having to worry about somebody from behind you kind of potentially going for a dive up the inside and whatnot. It can be a bit of a nervous kind of time, but with this kind of thing, with the single make series, they're all the same car, so there's setup aside, there's no real kind of massive advantage. Somebody going into the gravel there. There's no massive advantage really, but I mean, it's all about kind of do you gamble it? Do you chuck it up the inside? Do you hold off? Do you just wait for the opportunity? It's one of them things.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't, you're damned, and if you do, you can be rewarded, but you can also be damned as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Chris Williams in that difficult position between the proverbial rock and a hard place. Of course, like you said there, Steve, you can make the move up the inside of Hagel in front of you, but you are leaving the door open potentially to Miles Dixon, sat just behind. He's in a Pulse Simsport sandwich at the moment, but he'll be certainly happy to be running in the top 10. He's actually running second in class at the moment. To go back to a replay, it looks like, I think that's Denise Pope at the moment, just going up the Brabham Straight. 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏, apologies. Going through Paddock Hill Bend, we'll see him going into Paddock Hill Bend. This was the actual car that I think I must have seen. I've obviously got the paint mixed up with the Pole Simsport guys. You see him coming off, and does he collect anyone there? He doesn't. You see one of the Pole Simsport guys going around the outside, but you can see there, Tim, just getting slightly out of shape out through Paddock Hill Bend, and that gravel is lethal. So he just got barely even a wheel or two on there, and he's tried to correct it and seen himself in the wall. So it's not exactly the most forgiving track here at Brands Hatch, is it?
Definitely not. And through Paddock Hill, the car's so loaded up on that left-hand side, if you just even sniff at the gravel, you'll find yourself spinning off. Chris Williams being passed there by Dixon, I think, has now just gone off wide, so a mistake from him at Paddock Hill Bend. But here at the front, 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏𝗡 setting some very stellar and consistent lap times, a 32.2 last time around with 35 minutes to go. That's half a second faster than he went in qualifying. So like we say, with a car loaded up with fuel, he's managing to better his pole position time, and really that's enabling him to open up this gap that's now 1.9 seconds to Glenn Guest behind, then Jordan Burrows a further 2.6 seconds back. So this top three are starting to spread out, but that's not through incident or some kind of mishap in there. It's purely down to the pace of 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏𝗏, and if he continues that, he's going to have a nice buffer to play with. And I think, as we see Gilbert making the move on the number 94 of Miles Dixon, his teammate, to take what is third place in the AM class at the moment. I think for 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏𝗏, the best thing to do is don't let off the gas now. Push as hard as you can, get that gap, because you want as much time to play with should the rain arrive. And it does look like it's going to be in around 10 minutes according to the forecast in the top right of your screen. So I think 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏𝗏 needs to get that gap. He needs to have plenty of time to pick and choose his move, really, when that inclement weather decides to show up.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like, Steve, that weather's going to be getting worse as well. It certainly seems to be coming in earlier than we expected. The wind currently sitting at 9 kilometres an hour, is 12 when the green lights showed about just over 10 minutes ago. And it's coming in earlier than we expected. So potentially what could have been a slightly ice rink type track for the last 10 minutes of the race, looks like we could be seeing some fully fledged rain before the end of it, which could throw everything up in the air, couldn't it?
Absolutely. We could have an ice rink track for the last 30 minutes. Yep, the weather system is. I think 𝗪𝗔𝗟𝗘𝗏 is got its own micro weather system. I think looking at that, going from 30 minutes to 10 minutes, and then it's going to worsen, obviously as well. So all we've got to do is watch for the temperature, see whether that starts to drop, and see where they go. It's very light rain, so we might see just a kind of a lengthy progression from dry to wet. So let's see what it does. And hopefully it'll spice up. Bring if it brings up the guys together a bit more, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. You're starting to see some. Starting to see some people who are starting to close with their own battles here. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's not going to be looking forward to the rain in the number 69 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's machine. I can't believe I keep trying to say that without having to stumble over anything and say anything not appropriate for the stream. But he's currently sitting in 5th place, Tim. He's very, very close behind 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who's trying to make a move on Jordan Burrows as they go through 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏s and down the hill towards going in towards the GP section, go through the next couple of corners. But he's in prime position at the moment, isn't he? He's going to want to try and get past these guys and then maybe look at trying to haul down 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. They're both going into 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏s at the moment. 2 into 1's going to be difficult to make through there, but Jordan Burrows elects to sit in behind. There's a lovely camera from the bonnet of this, the roof of the Ginetta. Very difficult to see from the bonnet behind you, wouldn't it? But see Jordan Burrows getting a lovely run as they go up the hill towards Hawthorns. He's going around the outside. That's going to be difficult. It's going to put him under fire from 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 though, and it's leaving Tim 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 a chance to get into the mix, and he'll be looking to get even further up, obviously considering the way he got offered to start things a couple of weeks ago at Oulton Park.
Definitely, and from that onboard, it was obvious that the back straight that goes down under 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, under the bridge and towards Hawthorns, is long enough to get a good slipstream and pull up alongside the car in front. Burrows very bravely attempting to go round the outside at probably the fastest corner on the track. So props to him for giving that a go, but also for not losing the position to 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who's behind and now closing up as they cross the start-finish line. But Bro, like you say, brought back into this, and these guys are going to be aware of that. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, now into 3rd, will be looking to scarper away, but did make a slight mistake there through Paddock Hill Bend. Mitchell looking to the inside of Burrows, and can he get it stopped? It's all over the curve on the right-hand side. Burrows had to yield to some extent and leave a car's width on the run down the hill towards Graham Hill Bend side by side. Burrows able to get the job done and not run as wide as he did on the previous lap. So these guys are looking in fine fettle at the moment, able to battle pretty nicely, considering that they might be struggling with pressures over these curves. We heard from Matt Richards, obviously lost that podium finish last time out. He suffered a puncture at Oulton Park. A number of the drivers saying that these tyres are very difficult to deal with on the Ginetta when you're pushing this hard for this amount of time. As we see Burrows all over the grass on the exit of Hawthorns, but again able to get the car back on track and not yield the position to 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 behind. Beneficiary of all of this, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 up ahead, who's able to make a gap now, best part of a second.
Yeah, he'll be focusing very much on Glenn Guest in front of him. He's still got 4 and a bit seconds up the road towards him, and then Glenn's got another 2.5 seconds up towards 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who's in the lead of this race, and he has been since the start. As you can see, a lovely front splitter cam on the front of Aidan Bro's Ginetta, closely behind 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who's at the moment, Steve, probably focusing more so on Jordan Burrows, and he's certainly made a few mistakes as Jordan over the last couple of laps. I'm sure what Regan's thinking is, look, let's try and get past him as quickly as we can and leave him to be under the watchful eye of Aidan Bro behind him.
I think for sure, yeah, he certainly seems to have the legs on Burrows at the moment, so I think he'll be trying his best to get through there as soon as he possibly can. But obviously, when you're putting yourself offline, trying to pass somebody, whether you're going kind of up the inside or whether you try to go around the outside, you've always got to be mindful of who's behind you. And I can attest to the fact that Aidan, if he sees a gap, he's going to go for it, and that's what he's kind of got to look at now, I think, when he's trying to make a move on Burrows.
Yeah, absolutely. We can actually see him just looking at the timing board, Tim. Glenn Guest certainly closing the gap on that last lap. I'm not sure whether Aaron made a mistake going through the last tour of the circuit, but he's certainly closing that gap slightly. As I say, that's gone out by another 0.2. But it's one of those at the moment, isn't it? We're kind of biding our time to see how much this rain is going to hit. You see 𝗬𝗔𝗏𝗔𝗏 going up the inside, up towards 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and makes the move. That's a wonderful move there from the number 69 machine, and that's given 𝗦𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 the chance to get through as well. Jordan Burrows wasn't going to be able to make that move. It goes very, very deep and aggressive into 𝗪𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓, and that is one of those, I think, you saw him there. Maybe one of those where he goes on a little bit peeved that I've been shoved off the track a little bit. I'm just going to send it down the inside, and unfortunately, it's negatively impacted both him and Aiden's race to an extent.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that's an example of the red mist descending to some extent, and really with best 27.25 minutes to go, Burrows would have been better to just let Bro go and tuck in behind, because now Robbie Stapleford's looking up the inside into Paddock Hill Bend, and Burrows getting all kinds of squirrely over the curb on the exit, and Stapleford is going to make this move through Druids and take the position. So Stapleford was out of the mix. He was a handful of seconds down the road, and now that one instant between Bro and Burrows has brought him into the mix, and they've both lost out there. But saying that, Bro's now up to 5th, and he's going to be kicking on to try and catch the top 4 in front. Regan Mitchell, obviously, who was fighting his way through that little pack. But yeah, the gap for the lead is really starting to just ebb and flow a little bit now. Pilkington settled into his pace, but Glenn Guest able to take a nice chunk out of him and bring the gap down to 2 seconds, and it seems to be hovering around the 2 second mark, and they've got 5 seconds, 4.8 really, to stint Passport behind. So I'll keep my eye on that gap, because I'll be interested to see if Passport, now he's in a little bit of clean air, can really close up to Guest in second. But Burrows here back down to 7th. It's unravelling for him at the moment, but there's plenty of time still to get his head screwed back on and focus on getting a nice result for the end of this one.
Yeah, absolutely. You see him maybe just needs to bring it under control a little bit. Had a couple of incidents, obviously, over the last couple of laps, shifted himself down the field a little bit, and probably just needs to get a couple of laps back under his belt. Maybe just find a bit of cool, calm collectedness and just try and battle again. But we've got on the main screen at the moment the battle for the AM class lead. Daniel Andrews currently the possessor of that, with Gilbert and Chris Williams closely in tow, as all three of them taking slightly differing lines through Paddock Hill Bend. It looked like Chris was slightly wide of the apex, but the other two guys kept a very close line. And it shows that although, yes, Steve, there's some quite big gaps throughout the track, of course, that this battle having a 7-second gap ahead of them up towards Jordan Burrows, but it's showing you just how much just how much competition we have across this field, regardless of the status of the drivers. It's fantastic to see, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's fantastic. I mean, we've got the faster guys who are all kind of nicely clumped together and having a good old scrap. But of course, I mean, these guys could be quite easily as be quick as Guest and Pilkington. But obviously, the fact that they're fighting, if you're in a group of these three, like these three are high here, if you're scrapping, you're going to be slower than somebody who's in free air.
Absolutely, and it's interesting to see. I mean, both Gilbert and Williams seem to be making concerted moves, I would say, at the moment. No one's really going for anything too early doors, it seems. No one's really trying to send one up the inside, lick the stamp and send it a la Daniel Ricciardo style. Just only to bide their time at the moment, which is going to help them, of course, Tim. It's going to help them potentially try and draw that gap back towards Jordan Burrows ahead. So it's an interesting tactic. Obviously, it's very unlikely they're going to be talking to each other through this, but it's interesting to see. They do seem to be maybe trying to not impact each other too much and just try and get some good laps on the board.
Well, definitely, but these guys finished they're 1-2 in class at the moment. Andrews ahead of Gilbert, as we see on the timing tower. Miles Dixon heading to pit lane, so he's dropping from around. As we see the rain starting to fall, David. So wow. Dixon, who was outside the top 10, he's now well outside the top 10. And these guys, like I was saying, although they were Andrews and Gilbert were 1-2 the other way around last time out, they're aware that these, the car ahead, that blue and yellow Ginetta in front, is your championship rival for the AM category. So yes, you want to bide your time, be clever, score the points, start thinking the long game. But also, you've got to make your mark on this guy. You want to pass him and let him know that you're not going to be accepting second place in the remaining rounds. So a little bit of mind games can play out here as we see Gilbert going very late into Sheen. That might be the effect of the weather already. As we see the track, yes, it has moved to greasy, so these drivers are now going to have significantly less grip compared to when the track was at fast or indeed optimum. But the man who's going to be the first to deal with all of this and definitely required to make a measured decision will be 𝗪𝗏𝗡𝗏, 3.2 seconds up the road. So maybe he's dealing with the pressure nicely at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly seems to be. He's got a nice little gap at the front at the moment. 3.3 seconds back to Glenn Guest. We see Denise Pope in the number 79 Wild Things Racing machine, closely followed by Matthias Hagel. They both drop into the pits. They're going to be presumably popping on some wet tyres to try and counteract the fact that this rain, of course, still greasy. So maybe you'd expect we'll see some people on some converter strategies. Of course, you see some of these guys, of course, going in now. Some of them you'd expect them to see them maybe trying to hang it out for a little bit longer. But you can see, Jordan Burroughs getting a little bit squirmy at 30s onto the back straight. That's a very, very brown moment for him there. That's a concerning one. Code brown for sure, and he's been within reason. He's probably a little bit worried, and he's probably quite glad he's managed to keep that on the track. It's certainly not what he would have wanted, Steve, after the last couple of corners. I'm sure he just wanted something nice and quiet. This rain's probably not really come at the best time for him, is it?
No. A greasy track is a very slippery track. I mean, they can try and run offline a little bit, try and pick up some marbles to try and increase a little bit of grip. But I think we've got to watch Dixon. Maybe he saw a couple of specs and decided to go for it straight away. That could play into his hands. But we'll just have to see how it pans out. But obviously, Aaron's making big gaps now. As we see, past Ponce also gone into the pits, so one of the first front runners to hit the wet tyres. Let's see what he can do once he's get on that nice treaded rubber.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll see how he does. Jordan Burroughs going into the pits as well. Unsurprising, given the excursion he had on the last lap. As you see, so many different lines. It's Aidan Bro at the back of the picture. It's not actually, no. It's Charlie Kent at the back of the picture. Who's just gone a little bit wide there, going through Druids. That would have been a bit of a concern for our current championship leader, but it looks like he's still running absolutely fine at the moment. But yeah, we're seeing people on converse strategies. Miles Dixon looks to be controlling that Ginetta pretty well. So I think you're probably right, Stephen. He probably has gone on for that wet rubber early. Like you say, we can't unfortunately see through ACC what tyre selection they've gone for, so we are just assuming anyone who has gone into the pits has gone in for wet rubber, unless they've had some sort of technical difficulty in the sim. But 𝗪𝗏𝗡𝗏, Tim, still out in front at the moment. He's still got that about 4 seconds to Glenn Guest at the moment. It's all going his way at the moment, but one little toe onto a tiny bit of rubber on the outside of one of these corners could completely flip that upside down, couldn't it?
Definitely, and he's got that advantage, but it's so difficult when you're leading. What do I do? Do I wait for the guy behind to pit and then maybe lose time making mistakes? It looked like he's actually pulling over. No, not. I was going to say, it looked like he was pulling over to the right-hand side to come to pit lane, but maybe just an alternate line through there to try and find grip. It's so difficult. Do I stay out? Do I be the first to jump? Obviously, we saw Dixon went pretty early into pit lane, and indeed, Regan Mitchell now is up to third on the road. He hits the pit lane with Bro and Stapleford. So really now the pressure's on. Can Aaron keep up a good enough pace to stay out and to really make the best of the situation? A 38.9 was his last lap around, and someone who's definitely pitted, Miles Dixon, who is now down the order in 15th, did a 38.5. So it looks like we're in this crossover period now where the wet tyres are going to be the tyre to have. I'd be surprised to see 𝗪𝗏𝗡𝗏 staying out for a lot longer, considering the track's changed to damp and there's plenty more rain on the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you'll probably see Glenn Guest come in at the same point. I wonder if Glenn's just been sat there and just thinking, well, I'll do whatever he doesn't do, or I'll hold out for another lap and see what happens, because he's obviously in that kind of prime position, isn't he, Steve? Where he was obviously second on track. He's a few seconds back. He's not necessarily quicker in these changeable conditions at the moment. So really, what his goal has got to be here is to try and do something strategy based. But I wonder if he's left it too late, as he's now under pressure from Joris Petersveen behind him. Although I wonder if Joris is actually a back marker at the moment. It's I'm looking at the. Oh no, he isn't. Sorry, my apologies. He is actually fighting for position. That's very, harsh of me to say, but Joris, I don't think has pitted yet. So
no, he hasn't.
Interested to see that this is all shaping up quite interestingly. There's the 𝗪𝗞𝗘𝗡𝗚 now going into the pit lane. Glenn Guest following him in. Joris Pietersveem obviously carrying on around at the moment, and that means that pretty much everyone now at the moment, Steve, has dropped onto wet rubber. So we'll see how this plays out over the next couple of minutes.
If I was totally honest, I think that was the best thing he could have done. I think if he'd have gone out for another lap, it could have been the biggest mistake of the race, I think, for Aaron. He needed the wet tyres, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It was certainly getting to that point, and like Tim said before, it is a damp track now. The track temperature's dropping. It's dropped a couple of degrees so far, from 24 down to 22. Still a bit of wind. Of course, the rain only going to get worse, so it is one of those. Strap those wet tyres on now. Get yourself comfortable and kind of sit in for the next 17 and a half minutes. He's been in there. He's been in his pit box for a little while. He has got Glenn Guest just in front of him, but it looks like he's about to leave that now. But Glenn Guest looks to have gained a little bit of time on him. As you see him coming out of the pits now, Tim. It's not as big of a gap as we had before.
No. And I was going to add, the drivers won't have had a pit stop prepared. You wouldn't have been expecting to be stopping in this race. We didn't have it last time out, Oulton Park. So there is that human error now you've got to factor in. Have drivers remember to make sure they're not taking on any fuel? If they remember to activate the correct settings on the pit options for when they hit pit lane? As we see, Pietersveem is now in the box and dropping down the order. It was a valiant effort to try and stick out and do something different, but I think the track's just getting too wet, and yeah, that's allowed that gap to close up. There might have been something in there that Aaron was maybe took on a little bit of fuel or was stationary. Sorry, actually, you can't take on fuel, can you? So, there might have been an instant there where he was just loading back in. He was just trying to get going again, and there was a bit of time. So there is that error in there that can change things during pit stops. But at the moment, it looks like our order has been resumed. The top five are really the top five we had pre-pit stops.
Absolutely, yeah. But if you notice, the times are a lot closer. Regan Mitchell looking a little bit loose as they go through. He goes through his Hawthorne bend there, up at the top of the GP layout at the moment. Certainly looking. I mean, we mentioned before he's not necessarily been looking forward to any of the rain that's incoming. He certainly doesn't seem to be too comfortable at the moment. But he's managed to close up on 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏, and like Tim said, Steve, the positions are still as they were, but these gaps are a lot closer than they were before. So this race in the last 15 minutes is really going to hot up, I think.
Well, for sure, yeah. I mean, a lot can go wrong in a pit stop. Myself, I've fallen foul to that myself. You've got to get your pit box absolutely spot on. If you overshoot it a tiny little bit, you have to wait for him to pull your car back, and then it raises it up to change your tyres, etc. Also, there's no fuel to go in these cars. Oh, somebody's getting very, very wide there on the last corner. But yes, you can obviously, if you activate your pit limiter too early, you can lose half a second there easy. If you overshoot your pit box, you could lose a second, 2 seconds there very easily. Also, once you finish your pit stop, you've got to restart your engine. Somebody's gone off up there in 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏 into the gravel trap. There you go. Yep, back on, out of the way. Yeah, as I say, also restart your engine. That can also take you could lose half a second, maybe longer there as well. So you can lose a bucket load of time in the pit stops.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see Glenn Guest is now within a second of 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. He's been closing the gap ever since they've dropped onto these wet tyres. He was a couple of tenths quicker on the last lap, but he's noticeably quicker this time around. He's already gained about half a second nearly over the first part of this lap as they're going through the top end of the circuit up towards Sheen Curve. And it's one of those corners that can be difficult in the wet or the dry, but he's certainly managed to close that gap, Tim. So this race win that I personally expected 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 to run away with is looking a little bit under threat at the moment.
Definitely, and Aaron will know that car's in behind him now. He did a fantastic job of keeping Jenson Button at bay, of all people, in the second round of the GT4 Season 5. But now Glenn Guest behind and looking pretty quick. We'll get a nice idea of their lap times at the moment as they start to understand these conditions. The gap has come down again. The 38.5 for 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, but a 38.2 for Glenn Guest, and he's looking like the quickest driver out there on track at the moment. So I would expect to see him close up, but as we know with racing, catching is one thing, passing is very much something else.
Absolutely, of course, said by made famous, that phrase, by, of course, Murray Walker, who's obviously the stream is in tribute to this evening. And they're coming up towards some back markers. There's a couple of guys ahead of them, one just ahead of them going through 𝗪𝗔𝗓𝗔𝗦𝗓, or just come out of 𝗪𝗓𝗔𝗓𝗡𝗃, sorry, onto the Hawthorn straight, and a couple up towards Hawthorn Bend at the top of the straight. So this race is not over by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm sure Glenn will be just hoping for a couple of laps just to get himself into gear, get himself back into the swing of things now this rain's starting to come down. But one person to keep an eye on, Steve, is we've got 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, who's only a couple of tenths behind 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who has done a really good job to get through. Of course, 𝗧𝗏𝗏 was the beneficiary of some, should we say, action towards the start of this race. But that podium position, well, the top three really, anything could change at the moment. As actually, funnily enough, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 has managed to get it past 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. So I wonder if Steen's had a bit of an issue there and has dropped himself down, which shows you anything can happen in these damp conditions.
No, for sure. The damp conditions can be very, obviously they are very, very tricky. Puddles that tend to affect. Obviously, you hit a puddle going full chat, then you're gonna pick up. You lose steering ability, of course, because you're aquaplaning. You touch a bit of grass, which is obviously a lot more slippery when it's wet, as the tarmac is. But Regan's a very, very hardy racer, so I mean, I think if he's got his car set up right and he's got the tyre pressures exactly where he wants them in the wet, I think he can only 5.8 seconds to guess. I think he could, 12 minutes to go, depending on how guess goes, he could close that gap up as well, maybe.
Absolutely, yeah. You can see the rain is due to get worse. You see Jordan Burroughs again, Tim, going slightly off the track up towards Druids, but the rain is due to get worse. I wonder if we'll see this continue into the next sort of 10 or 12 minutes or so that we've got left. But there's still plenty of action here still to come. And Robbie Stapleford driving a very good race, of course, running in 6th at the moment. But it seems like if Jordan Burroughs could just get himself onto the track for an elongated period of time, he could probably have a move on him, couldn't he? But
yeah, definitely. He has got the pace, and we know that from last time out. Yes, okay, he benefited from Richards having the problem to elevate him to 3rd, but he had a very solid race at Oulton Park, and he does have the pace to be competing for the podium positions. And it just seems like a slightly messy venture tonight at Brands Hatch has cost him valuable time and positions. But as you alluded to there, David, the rain is meant to get worse just as the checkered flag is going to start, as long as that's going to be waved, so in 10 minutes time or so. But the weather has been coming in earlier than expected, so let's see if it intensifies. Crucially though, the battle at the front, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 has managed to extend the gap, which was once 0.7 of a second. Well, actually, it's just come back down. I was about to say he's done a stellar job to extend the gap, but losing out significant time on that previous lap has brought the gap back down to beneath a second. So these guys are really exchanging times now. Glenn Guest doing a 38.3 on that previous lap around. So it's all to play for, just as I thought 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 was filling the gap.
He's doing it for the cameras, Tim, I'm sure. You see one of the back markers there off, and that's Callum Cook in the Give It Gas racing car. I think that was going off just before 𝗪𝗔𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. He has been, I've seen him a couple of times. He does like to get very much out of the way as a back marker, but I don't think that one was one that he'd planned, at least. But yeah, Glenn he needs to start thinking about, he needs to try and get a bit closer sooner rather than later. I think, of course, 10 minutes left. That still gives them probably 6, I would reckon, maybe 7 laps at an absolute push, depending on when Aaron or whoever it is crosses the line, when the timer hits 0. But he's certainly got to start thinking of trying to get a little bit closer and putting a bit of pressure on 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, putting Mattis Niejah under pressure going down the hill towards Graham Hill Bend and round towards 𝗪𝗔𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 down the Cooper Straight. He's certainly very close at the moment. He's going to try and look to a move down the inside. This is one of those corners where you really want to take a late apex. So Mattis is going to have to be a little bit aware of the fact that Joris is down the inside, but he's managed to keep the move for now. But Steve, this is, like I say, with the weather getting worse, it's almost a case for a lot of these guys of, I just want to keep it on the track, and that's why we're starting to see some of the gaps maybe start to extend a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you get your drivers who love the rain. I'm one of them. I think rain driving is special. It's such a cool thing to do, and you get the guys who really do not like the rain. you've got to drive so differently. You've got to be so much steadier on the brakes, and you've got to feather the throttle much more than what you do in the dry. But there's places to be made. You know, people can make mistakes, and all it takes is for a tiny little mistake that you get away with in the dry, or in the wet you'll be round. You know, so yeah, it's. The rain is sometimes quite an equaliser as well. I think it can bring the back of the pack close to the front of the pack. You know, if this race had started wet, it may not have been so spread apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, yeah, we've certainly seen pockets of battles, one of which you can see in the corner of your screen is 𝗦𝗓𝗏, very much on the back of 𝗧𝗛𝗏𝗡 at the moment. So that is his 4th position place under threat as it stands. But Denise Pope currently at the front of this little post Simsport train formed of Marcus Hagel and Miles Dixon. As all Marcus Hagel goes a little bit wide, both of them synchronised drifting there through Graham Hill Bend. And Denise is then going to disappear off the road, and she'll be very pleased to get them away from her rear view mirrors. You now see 𝗦𝗓𝗏𝗏 going through. I think that is Graham Hill Bend. Oh no, sorry, it's Sterling's, of course, up towards the back end of the track. He's very close to him behind 𝗧𝗛𝗏𝗡. Of course, one of those guys who I think a lot of people were probably rooting for at the start of this race. He's under a lot of pressure now. As you see so many different lines going through these corners, and we're interested to see. I mean, I can imagine Aiden's probably going to be a case of when rather than if he's going to get past, but. He's got 5 seconds to 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 in front. Now, he's obviously a quick driver himself, but probably a little bit too little, too late, would you expect? I think, are we expecting to see the same 3 on the top 3 steps? Maybe just not in the same position they are at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to close that 5-second gap on pace alone, but factor in that, yes, it is wet, and you can make a mistake and find yourself dropping tons of time, but really that difference, find yourself offline in the dry and you're not running the optimum line, you can lose plenty of time and pace over a single lap and leave yourself open to being passed, as 𝗦𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏 attempts to get the cut back through 𝗪𝗔𝗍s, and they're actually side by side. Bro 2 wheels on the grass as they come through Pilgrim's Drop downhill and then climb again towards Hawthorns. Bro on the inside, but Paspont's managing to hold it out just for now, but no, it looks like Bro's got the job done. I was going to say that sometimes running offline can help you in the wet, even in ACC. A lot of sims don't factor in that wet line, but we've seen that, especially through Clark Curve. Passpont didn't lose that much time for running out wide. You look for the grip in alternative ways when the weather turns against you, but Passpont will be thinking that he should have had a podium this evening, I think. He got in front of Mitchell and Bro when the incident took place that you alluded to in the first 10 minutes. But he has fallen back in this wet weather, and I wonder if it had been dry, whether we would have seen him challenge Glenn Guest for second place. But that gap now between the leaders up towards 2 seconds. So Martin Pilkington able to find his rhythm now in these wet conditions.
Absolutely, yeah. I was just about to say as well. Like you say, Steen would have been very much placed for a podium, and I think he's just maybe not set up for the wet weather as well as everyone else could have been. And I think you mentioned it when the pit stops are happening, Tim. Of course, these guys might well have had a pit strategy set up for the rain, but they probably weren't expecting it to come in as early as it was. So things like tyre pressures and everything like that can be make or break in this sort of thing. And it looks like most of the guys, from what we can see, most of them seem to have got it set up correctly, but some of them, maybe like Steen, for example, may not necessarily have got their setup on the money, and as a result of, unfortunately, dropping a little bit down the field. But at the moment, with just under 5 minutes left, Steve Aaron looks like he's got a little bit of breathing room between him. 1.7 seconds in the wet. Still plenty of chance for something to happen, isn't there, over the next few minutes?
No, yeah, for sure. That the gap's steadily increased little by little. But as we know, anything could happen in racing, and it usually does. We'll go with another Maryism. It could easily turn quite sour for Aaron, but with a bit of luck, he'll keep it on the grey stuff. The wet grey stuff, and I think it'll be. I think it'd have to be a bit of a catastrophe, really, for the top 3 to change positions between now and the finish of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like the top 3 potentially look to be set in stone. Like I say, we can obviously see, like I say, with the weather as it is being very adverse at the moment, obviously, like I say, dip a wheel onto any form of line on the side of the track or grass or anything, it of course can completely scupper your race. But battles all the way up and down the field, as we had a couple of weeks ago, 𝗬𝗏𝗡𝗡 him, and Marcus Hagel currently sitting in 15th place, obviously just behind 𝗪𝗔𝗡𝗧. It's been a good showing from the Pole Simsport guys. Unfortunately, it looks like a couple of them obviously got caught up in a bit of the action, and potentially could have seen themselves a little bit higher up in the field, potentially.
Yeah, it definitely has been a tricky one, and even established names struggling. But 𝗏𝗔𝗏𝗡𝗧, a newbie to this series, doing a very nice job in 26th at the moment. I'm sure he'll be enjoying the challenge of this wet weather. So it's nice to see some new additions to the series this evening, and he's getting a bit sideways out of 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏. He'll just be enjoying these last 3 minutes. Will Jamie, if it's been enough of a challenge already, he might as well have some fun before the checkered flag. But like you say about margins and how margins can change, particularly with the pit stops and the wet weather, is that battle for the AM lead, the AM podium between Andrews, Gilbert and Williams, currently 8th, 9th and 10th overall. The gap really extended between them. We saw them before the stops. You know, there was a matter of tenths between those guys. They were nose to tail. But after the pit stops, the gaps really were around 5-6 seconds between the three of them. So this race has really come to Daniel Andrews in the 29 Ginetta because of the pit stops, I think. You know, we should have seen those three guys definitely close together for the second half of the race. But something changed. That little marginal gain in the pit stop enabled him to have that lead and really just bring the car home for the checkered flag in 2.25 minutes time.
Yeah, 100%. I think we'll be on the penultimate lap at the moment. I'm actually just looking at the timings on Pitwall Live for the three of them, and it looks like Daniel Andrews actually went into the pits a lap before both James Gilbert and Chris Williams, and I wonder if that's given him that extra bit of breathing room that he needed. Of course, like you said, Tim, he's got just under 4 seconds of a bit of breathing room behind him back to that second place in the AM class at the moment. 𝗪𝗔𝗡𝗧 very, very close behind Denise Pope again. Of course, we saw the two Pole Simsport guys getting synchronised sliding going through Graham Hill Bend, but it looks like it's going to get down the inside going into Paddock Hill Bend onto this penultimate lap. It looks like Denise is going to give up that move fairly comfortably, to be honest. I don't know if that was a planned move or whether she's just electing to keep herself out of trouble. Like I said a little bit earlier on in the broadcast, she's had her fair share of incidents, which, from what I understand, aren't necessarily any of her faults. Have been caught up in the concertina effect we tend to get at the start of any race, regardless of how many you've got on track or not. But 𝗪𝗔𝗡𝗧 making that move, definitely not enough time nor a small enough gap for him to make any moves further up the field. Marcus Hagel's going to be trying to do the same thing as well, but Martin Pilkington, 2 and a bit seconds ahead of Glenn Guest behind him, does start what we can only assume, Tim, will be the final lap of this race.
He's just got to keep it on track now. He's done all the hard work, and really this is the final hurdle to take what is a dominant victory. He really hasn't succumbed to the pressure of the cars behind. He was able to build up that lead early on, and when the weather came, he was able to just bide his time. You know, and in that crossover period where drivers were heading to the pit box to take on wet tyres, yes, he stayed out a little bit longer, but he kept the car on the track and was able to make the decision that he thought best for his race. But Robbie Stapleford and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 on the right hand side of your screen battling out for 5th place, so positions still to be had here as the timer ticks down.
Yeah, absolutely. Less than 10 seconds left, so yeah, definitely will be the last lap of this Ginetta Brit Sprint second round here at the Brands Hatch GP circuit. Aaron Martin Pilkington coming through Westfield up towards Dingle Dell at the moment. You see Robbie Stapleford alongside 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 going up in towards Hawthorne Bend through Pilgrim's Drop. He's going to go around the outside. That's going to be a big move if he manages to make it. He's certainly got a good run. 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 going very sideways through there. Fantastic work from the two of them there. Brilliant racecraft, and fantastic to see there, Steve, that we've had plenty of quarter given to them. But Aaron Martin Pilkington goes past one of the back markers. I think that was 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and he goes through Clark Curve on the final tour of this Brands Hatch GP circuit, and he's going to come over the line for what has been another win in this Simsport Racing community for someone who has really found his mojo again. Glenn Guest coming second, and then Regan Mitchell rounding out the podium. But what a fantastic drive, Steve, from Aaron this evening. He's been faultless to an extent.
You took the words right out of my mouth there. Yeah, definitely faultless. He did exactly what he needed to do at the start of the race. He pitted exactly spot on for when he needed to. Yeah, another fantastic drive from Aaron. Onward and upward. It looks like Denise having a good old scrap with Hegel there. I think, is it? I think top 13, top 15 finish.
Getting the doors out a little bit, elbows out a little bit there.
Yeah, great driving. And Denise will just be wanting to get over that line. A nice, clean, good race. She looks like she's really defending hard there. So good on her. Fantastic racing throughout the whole field.
Absolutely fantastic stuff. As you can see, Regan Mitchell coming through in third place, Aidan Bro in fourth, Robbie Stapleford fifth, staying past Jordan Burrows, Daniel Andrews, James Gilbert and Chris Williams rounding out the top 10. Denise Pope does just about manage to get it over the line ahead of Charlie Kent behind him with as Marcus Hagel sitting in behind Tim. I'm sure you'll be able to get the thoughts of our top three in a few minutes' time, I'm sure. Anything in particular you're going to be looking to get from them, apart from how they got on in the changing conditions?
Yeah, well, I mean, 1, 2, 3 on the grid finished 1, 2, 3, but for us in the box and for those playing along at home, it was anything other than straightforward. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what really made them change over to the wets. You know, what was it that forced their hand? Because we saw Martin Pilkington did stay out a little bit longer, but also further down the order, I'll be interested to see if the likes of Andrews and James Gilbert drop in to the chat to see if that one lap really made all the difference in the pit stop window.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, it was greasy. It went from greasy to damp so quickly, didn't it? And it was a case of on the right tyre at the right time, something that someone like Jenson Button would do very well back in his F1 days. And obviously, it makes these things very interesting. And it looks like, like I say, the top three managed to make a good job of that. As you see, the highlights are going to come up on in a second. So we're just waiting for hopefully a few of the top three to pop down into the interview room so that we can have a chat with them and get their thoughts on the action. But Steve, obviously, you weren't with us for the last round at Oulton Park, but certainly shows to say that these single spec series certainly make for some good racing, doesn't it?
They sure do, and it is a class of racing that I actually really do enjoy, and I love. It put everybody in the same machinery and let them go at it. I don't think you can get anything better than that. Really can't.
No, absolutely. And like you say, it's a case, I think we mentioned it a couple of times, it very much brings the best out of people in terms of both setup building and racecraft. And we've seen that throughout. And it's good to see that even the changeable conditions didn't impact the quality of racing either. And we've had a fantastic race. Of course, see Jordan Burrows going through Hawthorn in the highlights at the moment. Of course, he was right up at the sharp end of the grid to begin with, but unfortunately didn't manage to continue on. I can see we've got a couple of the guys waiting in the interview room in a minute, so we'll hand over to Tim in just a second, and he can ask those hard hitting questions we know and love him for, and we'll see what they thought of that race. We'll hand over to him now.
So I'm in the interview room with the top three finishers from this evening's event at Brands Hatch, and we'll go to our race winner. It's Aaron Martin Pilkington. Aaron, another race win, a pole position to say the least, but it was anything but straightforward this evening at Brands Hatch.
Yeah, no, you could definitely say that again. The weather definitely took us for a bit of a surprise there. Wasn't expected to see rain during the race, and so there was always that debate in my head whether to go for wets. But as soon as we got to like the 25-minute mark, it was just nearly undrivable. I nearly lost it so many times. So yeah, I had to make the pit, and it worked out for us.
We saw that actually, in comparison to your competitors, you left it a little bit longer to make the change from the dry tyres to the wets. Did you feel comfortable when the rain started coming down, or were you just biding your time and playing the waiting game to see if there was any change really that could go your way?
Well, originally, to begin with, I put the ABS, pumped it up, and the traction control to 6 to see how that would help. But then, I'm seeing people then pitting, and I kind of just followed the herd really. It's like, right now it's time, because obviously these guys are going to gain a bunch of time on me. It kind of felt that way with the driving. The tires got real cold real quick. So yeah, the pit stop was just the obvious choice in the end. But yeah, I did leave it a little bit too late.
And just quickly to go back to the qualifying, obviously Superpole, the second time we've had Superpole played out on any Simsport Racing series, but your lap time was about half a second, 0.6 slower than your best time in the race. Were you taking it easy in Superpole, just trying to bank a lap, or was that really your fastest time in the session?
No, so in practice I was hitting mid 31s. So when it came to Superpole, obviously, I just made I'm just an absolute choke artist, and when it came to doing the one lap, I just couldn't string it together, and I was actually really surprised that I got pole. Big credit to Glenn Guest, because he was really close, within a tenth of me. But I was surprised I actually was pole, and I thought I was going to have a race with like the likes of Glenn Guest and 𝗦𝗕𝗏𝗏 this time round, which I missed out at Oulton Park. But yeah, really surprised at that.
Well, fantastic job anyway, Aaron, and congratulations on your race win this evening.
Thank you very much. It was really good. 3 out of 3.
Props to you, man. Well done. And we'll head over to our second place finisher, Glenn Guest. Glenn, you said last time out Oulton Park, you very much enjoyed the Superpole qualifying. You said it reminded you of being out there in the kart. But this evening, with that wet condition, that change from dry to wet, must have felt even more so like you were strapped into a go-kart.
Yeah, really enjoyed the race tonight. Loved the Superpole again. Bit like Aaron, kind of just I couldn't settle in the quali on the one lap. I think the pressures were just a tad too low. I was just slightly missing apexes and whatever. And yeah, when I looked at the time, I thought, oh, I could have had probably another half a second there if we'd have got it bang on. But yeah, race was really interesting. Aaron just had too much for me today, basically. And yeah, I left it one lap too late as well. I went across the line and I just kind of saw the track change and the tyres change, and I thought, yeah, I should have definitely gone in on the lap before, and that might have just put me in front of Aaron coming out next time. But yeah, really pleased with the result. Second's great.
Well, obviously you finished second last time out as well, so second this evening. Are you starting to turn your mind towards scoring the points, bagging big scores, and basically being in that championship fight, or are you taking it every race as it comes?
I'm one that tends to kind of take the points, really. It's like I could have probably pushed up towards Aaron, but with the conditions today, I thought, you know what, the gap was just ebbing and flowing, and I had a fairly decent gap behind. So towards the end of the race, I thought, let's just settle for second, and not catch a curb and put ourselves in the wall or anything like that. So yeah, the seconds are great, but yeah, I would like that win, that first win. That would be definitely good.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations on your result, and thank you for joining us in the comms box.
Cheers, guys.
And we'll head over to Regan Mitchell, third place finisher. Regan, you got third on the grid. You finished third, but we definitely saw you locked in battle in that top 5 positions with the likes of 𝗬𝗪𝗡 and 𝗦𝗫𝗏𝗏. Did you have a nice time out there?
Yeah, it was pretty fun. I keep seeming to drop back on the first lap or two, and it kind of ruined me this race because I was really fast in the wet basically, and I feel like I could have challenged for second if it weren't for just losing time at the start in a battle.
And obviously we talk about how much time you can lose in battles, obviously, and in your Superpole laps. There's plenty of time to be lost, unfortunately. But in that changeover from dries to wets, we were talking about how drivers need to have their pit stops prepared and be ready to go to pit lane, as and when the time comes. Did you have a pit stop ready? We saw, everyone seemingly taking their time to get their setups ready on the grid. Was that the time you took to set up the pit stop, or were you taking it as it came in the race?
Yeah, I did it on the grid, but I hadn't actually practiced any pit-ins. So that was like a first time in a while. But yeah, on the grid, did the set up the pit stop with a complete guess on wet pressures for light rain, but it was about right. And then did some setup changes so that I could hopefully be faster in the rain as well, which did work, but I was too far behind at that point to make use of it.
Well, congratulations on your result. That's your first podium in this series. You're hoping for more of the same next time out at Snetterton?
Thanks, yeah. Hopefully. That's the plan.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Regan, and congratulations once again to our top 3 finishers this evening. We'll head back up to Dave in the commentary box.
Yeah, thanks very much, Tim. Fantastic to hear from those 3 there. Congratulations to, of course, Aaron, Glenn, and Regan in that one. And Steve, obviously, couple of different podium sitters, but Glenn Guest was really the one who stuck out there. That's going to put him in a really good position for the next round in a couple of weeks at Snetterton. Do you think he's the closest challenger to someone like 𝗦𝗓𝗏 at the top of the standings at the moment, or do you think there's one of the other guys who's potentially come out on top that could maybe have a fist at trying to knock him off top spot?
I think there's any number of drivers that can do well. Obviously, Aaron, he seems to be on quite a run lately. So, I mean, I've never discounted him. But at the end of the day, you finish consistently in the top 2, top 3. You stand a damn good chance of the championship.
Absolutely, yeah. Like you say, consistency is going to be key, of course. Another 3 rounds here for the Simsport Racing Ginetta Brit Sprint. As Tim mentioned in the interview booth there, we'll be off to Snetterton in 2 weeks' time. And then 2 weeks after that, we'll be at Silverstone. And then 2 weeks again after that, we'll be off to Donington to finish off the season. But Tim, fantastic interviews there. You're really getting a knack for that now. I think you're always asking those hard-hitting questions. Any final thoughts from you before we sign off this evening?
I think we're really starting to see this championship hot up, and obviously the next round at Snetterton, when we're halfway through that race, we'll be halfway through the championship, and we're starting to see that although 𝗦𝗓𝗏 had it pretty easy last time out at Oulton Park, this evening the coin was flipped, and Aaron Pilkington, class of the field, Glenn Guest alluding to thinking that he had the pace in some situations, but opted already in the second race of the championship to make sure he brought the car home to finish second. And then Regan Mitchell in third, saying he thought he was the quickest guy out there on track towards the end of the race. So plenty of drivers in the mix for this title, and I'm very excited to see where things take us next time at Snetterton.
Absolutely, yeah, fantastic race. And like I say, we've got 3 more fantastic spectacles coming up for you in the next couple of weeks or so. But from myself and on behalf of Tim Fullbrook and Stephen Haley, who have been fantastic to have joined me in the commentary box this evening. My name's been David Wressell. Hope you've enjoyed the stream. If you have and you haven't done it already, then make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well. And we'll be back on Wednesday for the next round of the GT4 Championship, of course, as well. And before then, have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.